Hi and welcome to this Junior Cycle Higher Level Maths video where we're looking at applied arithmetic and specifically looking at percentages, profit and loss. In this video we're going to cover how to calculate percentages, calculate values as a percentage, use and calculate percentage increase or percentage decrease, use and calculate profit and loss, use and calculate percentage profit and loss, and calculate the margin and markup. So let's go back to basics here with percentages. When we say percent, what we're really saying is per 100. So for example, if we said 1%, we mean 1 per 100 or 1 out of 100 or 1 over 100. So percentages are a type of proportion, and proportion is an umbrella term, and underneath proportion we have percentages, decimals and fractions. Effectively they all mean the same thing, they're just given in slightly different forms. So you need to be able to convert between decimals, fractions and percentages. So let's start with looking how to find percentages. So to find a percentage, we're going to have a few different ways we can do this. So the first way is working with a decimal. So the first thing you want to do is take your percentage and divide it by 100, which gives you your decimal version, and then multiply the decimal by the number you want to find a percentage of. The second method is the percentage method. This is the one that I prefer, and the reason I prefer this is you don't have to do any kind of converting. It is a bit of a pain to write the percentage button on your calculator. However, if the percentage has a decimal point in it, you're less likely to make an error. So we're going to use the percentage button on your calculator and simply multiply the number with the percentage sign by the number you want to get the percentage of. The third method is using fractions. So you create a fraction by putting the percentage over 100. Remember, it means per 100. And then you can simplify the fraction if you want. It's not required. And then you multiply the fraction by the number you want to find a percentage of. Let's take a look at the 2022 Junior Cert Ordinary Level question, and we're going to explore the different methods here of how to calculate a percentage. So Gina orders food costing €72. Gina gives a tip of 15% of this cost rounded to the nearest euro. Work out how much Gina gives as a tip. So what we want to find is 15% of €72. So the first thing to note is the word of in maths will mean multiply. So we're going to do multiplication. So our first method here, we're going to use decimal. So step one, we convert 15% into a decimal. We do this by dividing 15 by 100 and we get 0.15. We multiply that by 72 and that will give us our answer of 1080. Now, they did say correct to the nearest euro, so that will be an €11 tip. Now, if we wanted to do the same thing but do it with our percentage button, we would simply, we would simply take it exactly as we had it to begin with, so 15%, and multiply that by 72. So on your Casio, you'll need to find your percentage button. The new Casio, it's above your answer button. You need to use Shift. You type that in exactly and you'll get the 1080 again, which will round up to €11. If you're using a sharp calculator, just to be aware, the percentage is a little bit temperamental. So what you'll need to do, so let me just put my answer here. So again, that gives me €11. So if you're doing or using a sharp calculator, you just need to flip the order. The percentage has to come second. So you'll do 72 by 15%. Now that's absolutely fine to do, and because order multiplication doesn't matter. Multiplication is what we call commutative. It can be done in either order. You need to put your percentage at the very end and you won't need to press equals and you'll get your 1080 just like that. The third method is using fractions. And the first step is to take your percentage, put it over 100 and then multiply by the number we want to find a percentage of. And again, we get 1080. So if you want to try and work with this fraction here, that's fine. If you prefer to simplify it, that's also fine. If you're using your calculator, you don't really need to do any simplifying, but you can see that 5 goes into the top 3 times and 5 goes into the bottom 20 times. So you'll get the exact same answer if you do it using the simplified version as well. Whatever way we work, we get the same answer that Gina gives, €11 as a tip. So let's look at another ordinary level question. This is from the 2020 SEC sample paper. The recipe says a cake should be baked at a temperature of 210 degrees. Tom thinks that this is too hot. He reduces the temperature by 10%. Work out the temperature that Tom uses. So just be careful with questions like this, especially when we're given a percentage. It can be very easy to come along and say, right, I need to get 10% of 210 degrees, and using whatever method we want. So 10% multiplied by 210, that will give me 21 degrees, or you're going to do 0.1 by 210, again 21 degrees, or 10 over 100, which is 1/10 by 210 degrees, which is 21 degrees. Whichever way you work it, you get the same answer. However, this is not our final answer because they didn't ask us for 10%. They actually wanted us to work with it. What they wanted us to do was to reduce the temperature by this. So our final answer is going to be 210 degrees minus that 21 degrees. And that's really, really straightforward, but it's something that can easily be forgotten when you're in the middle of an exam question. So just be very aware of when you're working with percentages, is your answer the percentage piece, or do you need to do something with it? Do you need to add it on? Do you need to take it away? Or possibly you just need to get the percentage. Read your question very carefully. One thing that might be of help when you're working with percentages, and especially when you want to do percentages in your head, is to understand that percentages are actually reversible. So, for example, 8% of 25 is the same answer as getting 25% of 8. Now, if I asked you 8% of 25, most people probably wouldn't be able to do that in their head. They might be able to kind of work it out without a calculator. However, if I said what's 25% of 8, most people will have that answer really, really quickly as 2. And the reason for that is 25% as a fraction is a quarter. So a quarter of 8, you're just dividing by 4, very straightforward. But understanding that actually to get 8% of 25, you can actually simply reverse them and get 25% of 8. And the answer is 2. So either way, the answer is 2. So it's a really, really handy piece of knowledge to have if you want to do some work in your head. So I'm going to prove that this is true, because sometimes students are skeptical that this will be the case. Surely it couldn't be. But let's look at it using the decimal method. So if I want 8% of 25, what I'm doing is 0.08 by 25, put that in my calculator, and I get 2. Now, since multiplication is commutative, so the order doesn't matter, I can flip the order, 0.08 multiplied by 25 should be the same as 25 by 0.08. And if I change the decimal to be on the 25 and not the 8, so I'm not actually changing where the decimal place goes, I still get the same answer. And that's effectively what we're doing. We're flipping the order and we're making one the number smaller but the other one bigger. So we're dividing one number by 100 but we're multiplying the other by 100. So it balances out. So 8% of 25 is actually the same as 25% of 8. So if you're doing a question and it can be done much quicker if you reverse the percentages, use that. So let's talk about writing percentages. When you get a test back, so your teachers may give you the number of marks you got out, the total number of marks available. I tend to do this, and one of the first questions I tend to get is, but what's my result? Now, fraction is absolutely fine as a result, but I figure most students are actually asking me, what's my percentage? So it's a good habit to get into to understand how to make percentages. So let's look at a quick example here. So in your history test, you got 21 marks out of 25, and you want to understand, well, what's that as a percentage? Because our brains deal slightly better with percentages because they're standard. They're out of 100, we make sense of them, we use them a lot. So the first thing I want you to do anytime you want to make a fraction, is you're going to, anytime you want to make a percentage, is you're going to first of all write a fraction. So step one, anytime you want to make a percentage, is to write a fraction. So in this case, we got 21 out of 25. Now the second step is to turn this into a percentage. Now remember, percent per 100. So what we're going to do, we're going to multiply our fraction by 100. Now, back in primary school, you would have learned this and you might have said 100 over 1, and that's absolutely perfect and you're welcome to use that. The reason I say just multiply by 100 is, well, it's the same as 100 over 1, but chances are when we're going to be working with our calculator. Back in primary school, when you were working with these, you were doing the multiplication and simplifying yourself, so it was much easier to deal with two fractions. But for ease on the calculator, I think just use 100. You are welcome to use 100 over 1. So if you put into your calculator 21 over 25 and then multiply it by 100, we work out that we actually got 84%. And you're going to see this method again and again and again as we work through examples. So let's start with another ordinary level question. This one is from the 2019 Junior Certificate paper. Alex bought a motorbike in 2017. Its value at the time was 14,000. After 1 year, its value was 12,600. So write 12,600 as a percentage of 14,000. So what we're going to do is step one, we write it as a fraction. So we put 12,600 over 14,000. Now you're welcome to simplify it, that's fine. That's my first step. My second step is to multiply that by 100, which then creates my percentage. I go to my calculator and I put that into the calculator, and the calculator spits out 90, which is 90%. So it doesn't matter what we're talking about. If you want to write a percentage, we're going to start with a fraction and multiply it by 100. So let's look how this could be asked if we were dealing with a higher level question. So this question is the 2018 Junior Cert Higher Level Paper 1. And in total, 35 cars are washed in the garage that weekend. Patrick washed 14 of them. Work out the percentage of cars that Patrick washed. So step one, what fraction of cars did Patrick wash? So Patrick washed 14 out of 35. We then want to turn that to a percentage. So we multiply by 100, or if you want, 100 over 1. You go to your calculator, 14 over 35, and then you multiply by 100, and you work out 40, and that is a percent. So really, really straightforward, but a very important idea that you need to be able to work with. Let's talk about percentage increase and percentage decrease. So increase means to get bigger, decrease means to get smaller. So what we want to do, if we want to calculate the percentage increase or decrease, it is a percentage, so we're going to start with a fraction. And the fraction we're going to start with is the increase or decrease over the original amount. And then the second thing we're going to do is change that fraction to a percentage by multiplying it by 100. The reason we have a formula for this is because often students get confused about what to put the increase or decrease over. So they know they have to make a fraction, they know they have to multiply by 100, but what they struggle with is what is that fraction. So it's always over the original amount. So we put the increase or the decrease over the original amount and then multiply it by 100. So let's look at a percentage increase and decrease, kind of both of them are here from the 2016 Junior Certificate paper. A bus company increases the fare of all of its tickets by 6%. Before the increase, the price of the ticket was €17. Find the price of the ticket after the increase. Okay, so I want to find 6% of €17. And then I'm going to add that on. So let's use decimal here, 0.06 by 17. You don't need all of the decimal places or the zeros after those decimal places. And we work out that there is an increase of €1.02. We want to add that on. So the ticket was €17. We now add on an extra €1.02. So the new price of the ticket is $18.02. Now we could have done this a slightly quicker way. And that's by thinking instead, well, my original ticket cost 100%. And then I add on an extra 6%. So my final or new price of the ticket after the increase is 106%. So rather than getting 6% and adding it on, if I get 106% straight away, so 106% of 17, I should get the same answer. So in decimal form, that's 1.06. I multiply that by 17. And when I do that, my answer is 1802. Now, it's not that much shorter, but it is a little bit quicker with regards what you need to do on the calculator. Both methods, absolutely perfect. 6 months later, the company reduces the price of the ticket back to €17. Find the percentage decrease of the price in the price of this ticket. Give your answer correct to one decimal place. Don't fall into the trap of thinking it was reduced by 6%, because if we get 6% of €18.02, we're not going to get the 102 to reduce it. That's not how it works. So we have to use our percentage decrease formula, which is to find the decrease. So the decrease is €1.02. We then put that over the original price. So we're talking about it being at 1802. So we're looking at it being 1802. And then it turns into 17. I know the first part worked the opposite way. So this, for this part of the question, is my original amount. And this is the new amount. And then the change is the difference between them. And in this case, it's a decrease. We then multiply that by 100, which will give us our percentage. So we get 1.02 divided by 18.02. And remember, we want this correct to one decimal place. So when we do that, we get 5.660377. We want one decimal place. The next number is a 6, so it's going to round up. We get 5.7%. So just be very aware of making your fraction multiplying by 100, but in the case of increase decrease, what's going on the bottom line of that fraction. So let's look at another question. This is from the 2015 junior certificate paper. David weighs 88 kilos. The average male triathlon of his height weighs 83 kilos. If David aims to reach this weight, what percentage decrease is required? So the first thing you need is the actual decrease. So we're going to do 88 take away 83, which gives us 5. We then put 5 over, and this is where it gets tricky. You know you need to make a fraction, you're going to put 5 over something, but are you going to put it over the 88 or the 83? Remember, we always put it over the original, so David's original amount, or his original weight, what he weighs now, is 88, and then we multiply that by 100, and when we do that, we're going to be rounding our percentage correct to 2 decimal places. So 5.6818181882, and that gives us 5. We're cutting it here, 68%. So this is also from the 2015 Junior Certificate Higher Level Paper 1. Mary's house was worth 200,000. She increased the value of her house by 15% by building a conservatory, and then she increased its value by a further 10% by repaving the driveway. Find the total percentage increase in value. So this is a little bit tricky and there's quite a lot to it. So let's step through it piece by piece. So the first thing is her house is 200,000. We're now going to increase this by 15%. So we're going to find for the conservatory 15% of 200,000. And you can do that using your decimal method, your percentage method, your fraction method. And when you do that, we get 30,000. So that means the new house price is going to be 200,000 plus the 30,000, which means she now has a house worth 230,000 euro. Okay, so that's what her house was worth. Now that it's worth 230,000, she repaves the driveway, which means she's going to get, or rather increase, her value by a further 10%. Now this is going to be 10% of the new amount, so 230,000. Again, you can do this whichever way you like. If you want to use the shortcut getting 110%, that is absolutely perfect. So this works out as 23,000. We now take our 230,000, we add on 23,000, and we get 253,000, which is the new price or value of her home. But they didn't ask for that. They've asked for the total percentage increase in value. So the percentage increase is going to be the increase, which is from 200,000 to 253,000. It's going to be 53,000 over the original price of the house, which is 200,000. And then to make it a percentage, we multiply by 100. And that gives us 26.5%. So there's nothing you can do with that kind of 15 and that 10. You need to work all of them out individually, and you need to actually figure out the value after building the conservatory, the value after repaving the driveway, and then work out the total percentage increase. Remember, anytime you want a percentage, fraction multiplied by 100. In terms of increase or decrease, you put the increase or decrease, whichever you're working with, over the original amount. So now we're going to look at profit and loss. So profit is the money left over after paying expenses. So for us, that's the sale price minus the cost price. A loss is when you have a negative profit. So in the case that the cost price is higher than the sale price, you've made a loss. As well as being asked for profit and loss, we can be asked about percentage profit and loss. And just like any percentage calculations, we're going to start with a fraction and multiply by 100. So the first thing we want to do is write the profit or loss, depending on what the question is asking, as a fraction of cost price. So what that means is cost price is going to go on the bottom line of the fraction, and then we convert the fraction into a percentage by multiplying by 100. So this is what our formula looks like. So either profit or loss, depending on the question, over cost price multiplied by 100. So some other words that you are required to know are markup and margin. So markup is the profit as a percentage of cost price. So anytime you hear this language as a percentage of, think of it first as a fraction. So profit over cost price, then multiply by 100. So anytime they tell you as a percentage of, that's the thing that will go on the bottom line. So that's our markup. Notice how markup is just another way to say percentage profit. It's our profit over cost price. We then have margin. Now this is the profit as a percentage of selling price. So we put the selling price on the bottom and multiply it by 100. You'll see in the questions where in some cases they've told us what markup and margin is, and in other cases they haven't. So do be aware of how to calculate both of these. So let's look at the 2020 Junior Cert Ordinary Level question. So Margaret makes and sells furniture. It costs Margaret €75 to make a chair. She sells it for €110. Work out the profit. So that's simply the money that she makes. And when we do that, we get €35. So we have the selling price, take away the cost price. So she sells it for 110, the cost is 75. It costs Margaret €120 to make a bench. She sells it for a profit of €45. How much will she sell the bench for? So it costs her 120. She then also makes a profit of 45. So that means she sells it for €165. So it costs Margaret 320 to make a table. She sells it for a profit of €80. What is Margaret's profit for the table as a percentage of its cost to her? So this is basically percentage profit. So percentage profit is the profit, which is going to be €80, they told us that, over the cost, which is 320, and then to make it a percentage, we multiply it by 100, and that gives us 25%. So the next question is 2018 Junior Certificate Ordinary Level question. The local sports shop buys t-shirts for €20 each and sells them for 28. Work out the profit on each shirt. So that's going to be €28 minus the €20, which gives us €8. Work out the percentage profit. So this is a profit as a percentage of cost price. So remember, when they give us that language, what they're telling us is how to write the fraction. So it's the profit over cost price, and then we multiply by 100. So for us, it's €8. It costs them €20. So the selling price is 28, but it costs them, it costs them €20. And when we get this worked out, we get 40%. Let's look at how this kind of question will come up for a higher level. So this is the 2017 Junior Cert Higher Level, paper 1. A sports shop buys t-shirts for 25 and sells them for 49. Find the markup, so profit as a percentage of cost price. So we have the cost price, we have the selling price, so we need to find the profit. So the profit is going to be the selling price, take away the cost price. So that is €24. So it's a €24 profit. To get the markup, we're going to write that profit over the cost price, which is 25, and then you multiply that by 100, and we end up with 96%. So find the margin for the t-shirts. This is profit as a percentage of selling price. So the margin, so in this question, they've told us how to do this calculation. Like I said earlier, do make sure you know how to, or you know your formulas yourselves. So the profit is 24, and that's going over, in this question, 49, and multiply by 100. This one is correct to the nearest percent. So we'll do 24 over 49. That gives us 48.97959%. We want to make it a whole number. So because our next digit is a 9, it rounds up to 49%. So this is the 2020 Junior Cycle SEC sample paper. Millie sells each cake for $7.50. This gives her a profit of 20%. Work out how much it costs Millie to make each cake. Now, this is a very interesting question, and this is something we're going to explore in more depth when we look at VAT. VAT is very much this style of question. So what we have is the cost of the cake plus the profit, and that gives us the selling price of the cake. So we have limited information. We know the profit is 20%. We know the cost is 100%. When we add those together, the selling price is then going to be worth 120%. So that €7.50 is actually 120%. Now, a common error will be to find 20% and take it away, but actually the 20% was of the cost price, not the selling price. And the cost price is lower, so we won't get the right answer. So what we do instead is we work with the idea that 120% is equal to €7.50. Now we have a few different ways we can work with this. We can say, let's find 1%. So to find 1%, we're going to divide by 120. Whatever you do on this side, you're also going to do on this side. Be careful with your rounding here. So 750 divided by 120, we get 0.0625. Don't round if possible. I now want to get 100%. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply this by 100. And when I multiply that by 100, I end up with 6.25. So that's how much it costs Millie to make each case, €6.25. There is a little shortcut that you can do, which is that we take our 750 and you divide that by 120%. Or if you prefer decimal, we can do 750 divided by 1.2. Either way, it'll give you the 6.25. It's just a little bit quicker, but it gives you the exact same answer. When we're working with VAT, this is going to be a very common method, so make sure you understand how it works.